welcome back. Hello everyone and welcome to Biggest Band In, the series where I look at every state's most popular bands. Last episode we talked all about Alabama, so if you didn't see that, make sure you go check it out. And today we're going to be rolling right on down the list into the wild tundra of Alaska. America's largest state, Alaska is most famous for being America's largest state. And Sarah Palin. Salmon. And for its appearance in the film 30 Days of Night. But somehow not for its appearance in the film Alaska. Y'all remember that? Their state nickname is the Last Frontier, not to be confused with the Final Frontier, which of course is the cold, empty vacuum of space, which is actually easier to survive in than Alaska. This is their flag. It shows the Big Dipper along with Polaris, the North Star. Apparently it was designed as a guide for navigation. If you were ever walking around in the wilderness, if you could find where the North Star is relative to the Big Dipper, then you could find your way pretty easily. And it was apparently designed by a 14-year-old native. There's no jokes there. That's actually all pretty cool. Alaskans like to spend their time enjoying the natural splendor and beauty of their land. Some of the most scenic and awe-inspiring wilderness that planet Earth has to offer, as well as trying their best not to get killed by it. So who is the most popular band in Alaska, I'll ask you? I'll tell you. It's Portugal the Man. Not to be confused with Portugal the Land, which has a man named Dan, who's a fan of Portugal the Man. Dan the Man from Portugal the Land is a fan of the band Portugal the Man. Yes, Portugal the Man, the most infuriatingly punctuated band since Panic at the Disco. The story begins in Wasilla, Alaska, when a young John Gowerly met Jack Carruthers at Wasilla High School, and they began making music together at 2001. Gowerly would front the band Anatomy of a Ghost. Anatomy of a Ghost formed in 2002 and was a screamo post-hardcore venture, because by law that was the only band you were allowed to make in 2002. Despite some pretty respectable early success and a warm critical reception of their debut album, the band would break up in 2004. During that period, Portugal the Man was actually a side project that Gowerly had going on. But you know how it is, man. Sometimes your side hoe becomes your ride or die hoe. Peace, such is life. Initially just the two of them, they would utilize drum machines and synth loops to add backup music to their tracks, but they eventually would add in several more members to fill in the band. If you're wondering why I haven't bothered to name them, it's because they will soon be replaced. Don't worry about it. In 2004, after the breakup of Anatomy and Ghost, they moved their efforts down to America's most gentrified shantytown, Portland, Oregon. Here they would record some demos, do some touring, and in 2006 released their first album, Waiter, You Vultures. What a name. Right away it was clear that the approach of Portugal the Man was nothing like Anatomy of a Ghost. This band fell closer into traditional indie rock, with a great emphasis on experimentation and the unconventional. They'd quickly release their second album, Churchmouth, in 2007, and went off on a full US tour. In 2008, they would announce their departure from their record label, Fearless Records. And on August 1st of that year, they would release their third full album, Censored Colors. The first under their own independent record label, Approaching Air Balloons, in partnership with Equal Vision Records, which is also an independent label out of New York. Going independent did not slow the band down as they go on to release their fourth album, The Satanic Satanist, in 2009, and their fifth, American Ghetto, in 2010. If it feels like I'm just steamrolling on through these, I am. The band at this point did have fans and wasn't doing too bad for themselves, but they were not Alaska's biggest band yet. Right now, their competition is Jewel. So, they were doing good, but they weren't doing Jewel good, and they wouldn't for a few more years and a few more albums, so just sit tight, we're getting there. In 2010, the band ditched the whole independent thing and signed on with Atlantic Records, where they would release their sixth album, In the Mountain, in the Cloud. They'd spend the next 2 years touring, getting their gear stolen at Lollapalooza, getting at least some of that stuff back thanks to the power of the internet. They'd headline their own US tour, and join the Black Keys as an opening act in a European tour. And over the course of this whole thing, members were coming and going through a revolving door, with Gowerly and Carruthers being the only constant mainstays in the band since its creation. Wikipedia was nice enough to provide this kind of ridiculous chart of all the band members and when they were active. Tumultuous maybe, but persistent, perseverant. They never slowed down. In 2013, the band would release their seventh album, Evil Friends. This one being produced by Danger Mouse. And when Danger Mouse gets his hands on something, it's gonna blow up. While this still isn't the album that would give them their big breakthrough hit, it was the album that started getting them recognized in a more mainstream sense. The album was even nominated for World's Best Album at the World's Music Awards. Don't worry, I never heard of that either. At this stage in the game, the band was definitely not the small indie outfit anymore. They were legit, they had success, they had plenty of fans. But in the words of Maxwell Lord, life is good, but it can be better. And better it got. 4 years later, in 2017, the longest gap between records that the band ever had, Portugal the Man released their 8th studio album, Woodstock. And just like that, Portugal the Man was a household name. mostly due to the strength of its lead single, Feel It Still, a song loosely interpolated from the Marvelettes' 1961 hit, Please Mr. Postman. You might recall that as the song Nick Fury sings to Captain Marvel. You did see Captain Marvel, didn't you? No? Turns out you didn't have to. I'll put a link to that song in the description. It's not exactly the same, but you could definitely hear the inspiration. I mean, let's face it, the song is a bop. When it comes on, there's no reason not to start grooving your shoulders, nodding your head, start doing whatever stupid dance this is. The album was produced by Mike D of Beastie Boys fame, whom I have no doubt is responsible for the playfully cheesy tone that the album delivers quite often. But you know, like in a charming way. Feel It Still would hit #1 on Billboard Alternative and crack the top 5 in Billboard Hot 100. However, unsurprisingly, this is the band's least well-received album amongst critics and fans. And I can understand why. The band over the years really had abandoned their more experimental and psychedelic rock roots in favor of more pop-friendly sensibilities, which makes them feel right at home with all the other garbage getting regular radio play. So, you know, I get it. They're still good at it. Perhaps more infuriating is that the band was well prepared for this attitude, and as marketing for Woodstock started to wind up, they began selling shirts that read, I liked Portugal the Man before they sold out, keeping with the millennial trend that if you acknowledge your bullshit, you shouldn't be called out for it. It's been uncharacteristically quiet from the band since then. Woodstock was their last album, and having been released in 2017, that means it's been a solid 5 years since we've had a new LP. Granted, maybe that would have been less had it not been for a global illness that got in the way of a lot of things. They did recently release a new single titled What Me Worry. No announcement of a new album yet as of filming this, but certainly sounds like we're in for more of the same from Woodstock. While I'm sure that biggest band in Alaska wasn't a particularly crowded field as it is one of the lesser populated states, it certainly doesn't diminish just how thoroughly this band was able to burst itself into the public zeitgeist after middling in relative obscurity for so long. Unlike the last video, this is a band I did know and am familiar with and can say that I'm a fan of. They're not top of my list or anything, but there's plenty in their expansive body of work that I really dig. And even the more pop-laden Woodstock. Like I said in my Black Keys video, I can forgive a more mainstream direction if the songs are fun. And, well, Portugal the Man, they're still fun. They may not be the band they once were, but I don't think the band they are now is bad. But what do you think? Has their sound changed for the better or worse over the years? What are your favorite songs or your favorite album from them? Leave a comment below, please let me know. Also, if you're from Alaska, please list some local bands that you enjoy. Whether it's just a band you know, your friend's band, your band, go ahead and comment any local acts that you think deserve a shout out, as well as a link to their music so I can go and check it out. Once the series is over, I would love to circle back and do another series promoting local bands from each state, so please go ahead and leave them below. If you like this video, please strum the thumb, up picking or down picking, any which way, it's okay. Make sure you subscribe if you'd like to come back. Thank you for coming back if you're already subscribed. Always good to see you. Thanks for coming out, and I'll see you at the next gig.